Narcissism can be a very complex and challenging personality trait to examine. In this video, I'm going to be talking about different types of narcissism, different types that we are most familiar with, and breaking it down just a little bit so you understand the different types. And also, I just want you to know that this video is for information purposes only. It's not to diagnose a narcissist in your life. It's not to treat them, but it's helpful to kind of know what these personality traits are and how to deal with them. So let's get started. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth. I'm a transpersonal psychologist, holistic nutritional chef, and best-selling author of Get Well Now, Healing Yourself with Food and the Power of the Mind. And I help wounded ACONs, adult children of narcissists, to become healed icons. And what's an icon? An icon is somebody who is independent, confident, original, and naturally you. And I do this in my Iconic Me therapeutic coaching program, which is a holistic program in which I help you release the stored energy that's held in your body from these emotional experiences of being abused over time. When you grow up with a narcissistic parent, it is a very difficult and complex issue to deal with. It affects every single part of the self. And so I help you work through those different parts of the self in a holistic way. And I also can help you with food to support the body to heal itself while you're going through your holistic healing process. Okay, so let's get started. So I think the most popular form of narcissism is the grandiose narcissist. This is the one that most people are really familiar with. And they're pretty easy to spot in that they are larger than life. They're often the most successful person in the room, or they like to pretend that they are. Very often they're not even what they're projecting at all, but they're giving you that sense of bravado, like I am the one who is so successful and so smart, and I know everything about everything. And they tend to take up the air in the room. They tend to talk a lot and gesticulate and just, get people really drawn into their experience. So grandiose narcissists, and doesn't mean that people that are talkative are all narcissists. Please don't categorize it this way. But a grandiose narcissist is going to have a very skewed vision of themselves, and it's going to be what they're projecting. And it's not really who they are, because behind closed doors, they act in a completely different manner than this really charming and grandiose, amazing, successful person that they pretend to be. They're literally playing, they're acting out a part to try to get people hooked into their manipulations. That's a key thing with narcissism in general, is that they're looking for ways to get narcissistic supply. So these overt narcissists, these grandiose narcissists, will be very arrogant and boastful, and they'll be talking a lot about themselves and their accomplishments, and they just openly do this. But they also use people. That's another thing that they tend to do without really thinking, because they also lack empathy. And that's something we see across the board with narcissistic people, is that they will lack empathy. And that's the ability to feel with another person. I don't mean feel for another person. That's sympathy, where you feel sorry for somebody. But feeling with somebody is really like walking a mile in their shoes. It's like thinking in advance, like, well, if I do this thing, it's going to impact my daughter, my friend, my sister, my husband, or whoever you're with. It's going to impact this person in this negative way, so therefore I'm not going to do that. They don't have that kind of mechanism in their minds to stop themselves from doing things and saying things that are absolutely caustic and cruel and mean and thoughtless. And so you will say over and over again, it's all about them. You have to focus on them all of the time. They have this incredible, insatiable need for attention, and they really need people to validate their experience and make them feel better. So the more that you can coddle a narcissistic person and then give them what they're looking for, the less they're going to bother you, honestly. But then they're going to try to manipulate you to get what they want from you, thinking that you're in their corner and you're there with them. Dealing with narcissistic people, that's a whole other video. This one is really about narcissists and the different types of narcissists. It's one of the questions that people ask me more than probably just about any other question. There's lots of questions people ask me in the work that I do, but this is a big one. And like I said, though, the narcissists in general are going to exploit others for their own personal gain. It's all about them. They are the center of the universe, and you need to focus on them if you're going to have these people in your life. Now, the covert narcissist is somebody who these narcissistic traits manifest in a much more subtle kind of way. And so it's a very different kind of narcissism. But it's still all about me is the call of the narcissist. But they work in more passive-aggressive ways. And you can see this all across narcissism in general as passive-aggressive behavior, using punishment as a way to get back at people. Vengeance is a major emotion that really drives narcissistic abuse in narcissistic people. So a covert narcissist may appear very humble and self-effacing on the surface, but they harbor these feelings of entitlement, and people need to still serve them in ways that are specific to them. They also have those feelings of grandiosity, but they're not usually as overt as we see in overt narcissism. Covert, again, it's kind of flying under the radar is how they live. Now, these people tend to be very hypersensitive to criticism. They can dish it out, but they sure can't take it. That's another way to kind of tell if a person is covertly being narcissistic. And one of the ways that they do seek validation is through this passive-aggressive kind of behavior. And anybody can be passive-aggressive. It's not just relative to covert narcissists or narcissists in general, but covert narcissism particularly uses passive aggression on a regular basis. This might be a daily basis if you're living with a covert narcissist. And again, it's just harder to detect with them. They're often very introverted and shy in public settings, and they may come out and be more expressive at home, but a lot of times their expression has to do with manipulating you through their victimhood. So they're going to be the victim of all the circumstances, of all the things that are going on. They're going to be the victim of you, and they're going to turn things around where even though you were the one that was victimized, they're going to turn things around and make you think that they're the victim. They're the ones that are suffering, not you. And these people are often deeply resentful, and they may not be good with accepting or receiving attention or praise. These covert narcissists are particularly manipulative, using guilt and shame and passive-aggressive tactics in order to get what they want. And they tend to blame others for all of their problems. And of course, blame shifting is something that we see across the board with narcissistic people. But this is something this tactic is used routinely by covert narcissists, and they'll do it in a very guilting and shaming way. And again, it's not always as easy to detect. This might be the nice guy or the nice gal narcissist that you see, where they seem like they're this really great person, they're a really great father or mother, and they're projecting this image of who they want you to think that they are. But you'll start to pick up on the emotions behind what they say. And that's very important. And that's something that if you grow up with as an adult child of a narcissist, you may not be picking up on those more subtle emotions behind what people are saying because you're so accustomed to feeling shame-driven statements, guilt-driven statements. You're accustomed to feeling that vindictive energy. You're accustomed to feeling that victimhood that the covert narcissist stays in. And often grandiose narcissists will do the victimhood thing. They'll play the victim if it suits them and their purposes for manipulating you to get what they want. And so the covert narcissist also tends to blame other people, like I said, for all of their problems. You are the problem, not them. And they're not going to take accountability. That's also something we see all across narcissistic abuse, is they don't take accountability for anything that they do. It's always somebody else. They trip on the sidewalk, and it's the sidewalk's fault for having a crack in it. It's not like, oh, darn, I tripped. It's not like that at all with narcissistic abuse in general. Now, next is the malignant narcissist. The malignant narcissist is a very dangerous kind of person. This is a very severe form of narcissism, and it's way on the far end of the spectrum of narcissism. One of the things that happens with a malignant narcissist is that it combines other personality traits like sadism. These people are often very sadistic, and they get this cruel sort of pleasure out of actually hurting you. When you think about growing up with a person like this as your parent, just the knife just goes in the chest when you feel what that feels like to have a parent who actually likes to watch you cry, likes to watch you fall, likes to watch you crumble. These people will kick you when you are down, and they will call out every wrong thing there is with you and make up a bunch of stuff in the process. That's another thing with narcissists across the board. Lying is very indicative of a narcissist. Making up stories, fabricating things that never happened at all in the first place. And these are ways that they help to manipulate people around them to get what they want from them. The malignant narcissist has a complete lack of empathy, and their need for power and control is a must. It will harm other people, and they have absolutely no remorse around the things that they do to other people. It just doesn't even clock on their radar to feel bad about anything that they do or take accountability for anything that they do. So these people are highly manipulative and controlling. These are the people that you see at the top of cults. You see them as religious leaders. You see them as leaders in general who are cruel, who are unyielding, unkind, discompassionate, and they really only care about their own agenda and making sure that everyone else thinks the way that they think and does things the way that they do things without any kind of discourse or any kind of discussion from other people. So these people really derive a lot of pleasure from the pain of other people, and it's really sick when you think about it. They're often antisocial. They don't really connect. And this is something you'll see across the board with narcissism as well, that like that true connection where you feel like somebody really gets you, they see you, they hear you, they understand you. That's not something you're going to find with somebody who has these narcissistic traits, who actually has the disorder in these different types of narcissism that I'm talking about in this video today. So these malignant narcissists also will show paranoid tendencies. So they're often very paranoid because they know that they are lying. They know that they are making up things, and they assume that everyone else thinks like they think, when this is not something that's normal. Most people do not think the way that they think. Most people do not run through the world with zero empathy and ability to feel for other people. Most people don't want to control everybody into their agenda. But this is something that the malignant narcissist does seamlessly. This is something that they're really, really good at. And they're really good at psychologically breaking people down into believing that they're right and you're wrong. And they're really good at talking you into all kinds of things that are not legal, that are actually wrong, completely morally wrong. But you'll follow them because they're so good at breaking down your psychology and making you believe that what they believe is the truth, when in fact it is not the truth. It is what they have decided is true, and they've been able to convince you and anyone else around them that it's true. Now, if you're in a family system and you're seeing the truth and you're seeing that this is not how it is, this is very difficult. And what happens with a lot of malignant narcissists is people will go no contact with these parents because they cannot be around them, because it's incredibly cruel and sadistic to themselves. And so their boundary they set for themselves is to be kind to themselves and not allow themselves to be exposed to this kind of behavior and treatment. So again, malignant narcissists will display cruelty, and their objective will be to dominate others around them. And so if you're compliant with them, then you may not even notice that they're narcissistic and they're being abusive, because especially if you grew up with that, you might be really, really accustomed to this kind of treatment. So, and again, they have no remorse whatsoever for the harmful actions that they take. Okay, here's the worst one of them all. This is the dark tetrad narcissist. Now, the dark tetrad or triad, it's listed both ways in the literature around narcissistic abuse. Now, the dark tetrad refers to a cluster of 4 toxic personality traits: narcissism, which we've been covering so far in this video, Machiavellianism, which we're going to get to in a moment, psychopathy, and sadism. This is a dangerous combination. A narcissist with dark tetrad traits will not only seek power and admiration, but they'll also display deceitful, manipulative, and cruel behavior for their personal gain. They will not care about the wake of destruction that they leave behind them. And it's very obvious to people that are able to see their game, and to people that can't see their game. What happens is when somebody starts to question you, you will immediately get defensive and protective if you are buying into their lies and their manipulations and their deceit. Because you know on some level inside of your own heart, if you're a good, empathetic, kind, caring person, you know that they're lying. You know that they're manipulating and controlling, but they have something over you. They have some kind of thing that you value immensely that they are using as a way to control you and manipulate you. So these are the people that totally lack moral conscience. And so if you have a conscience and you're following this kind of person and somebody tries to point it out, and this happens in cults all the time, you don't want to see it. So you get defensive, you get protective, and you start to defend and protect the lies that you have been planted in your brain. You've literally been programmed by this narcissistic person to believe the things that they believe so that they can control you and dominate you. I told you I was going to talk a little bit about Machiavellianism. Now, Machiavellianism is a highly manipulative and deceitful person. They're very cunning, they're very scheming, and these people tend to play a very long game. So their narcissistic abuse, their Machiavellian schemes are long-standing. And so if you look at narcissists that across history, people like Adolf Hitler, his personality disorder was dark tetrad narcissistic personality disorder with sociopathy and with sadistic personality disorder. And he really showed that in a most horrifying way by the extermination of 6 million Jews. It's just unbelievable. The way that they can manipulate and deceive people into believing their agenda. They are so masterful at it, and they are so brilliant in the most horrifying way at systematically and slowly basically wiping out anybody who thinks differently than how they think. And they get you to think this way too. And oh my God, it's absolutely terrifying. They're completely emotionally detached from everyone and everything. Again, zero empathy, none whatsoever. And then they have high levels of sadism, which means that they derive a tremendous amount of pleasure from the suffering of others with no care at all for the people that are suffering. Oh, it's sad and it's scary, and there are people like this in the world today. Another form of narcissism that I really wanted to bring up for this video is the communal narcissist. The communal narcissist is somebody that you're going to see more often in like the top of religious organizations or spiritual organizations. And what happens for these communal narcissists is they appear to be very caring. They appear to be very helpful. They seem to be very self-sacrificing and loving and empathetic and kind. But really what they're seeking is admiration and validation from other people around them. Their motivations are really self-serving motivations to try to make themselves feel better. So they seek recognition for their generosity and for their kindness, and they use these acts as a platform for personal gain. But what happens is the people closest to them are the ones that suffer from the brunt of their disorder, where behind closed doors they are often explosive. They're often rageful. They may be using sexuality for exploiting people for their own personal gain. And what you'll see the longer you are around a person like this is you'll see that they're using their emotional instability to control other people with that. So you'll see them, they may blow up at a moment's notice and use that rage as a way to control the people around them. They often will be using like scripture or other things to try to control people. or whatever book it is that they're following. They're going to use the words of the leader from the past and use those as the words that will help to control you into whatever it is that they want you to do. So this person is like the savior who enjoys being the good person, who really does seek admiration and validation for all of the great things that they're doing to help other people. These people also expect other people to be very grateful for all of their efforts. So you need to express a lot of gratitude to help them to feel better about themselves. And just like all of narcissists across the board, they lack genuine empathy for others. They're putting on an act. They're creating this person, and usually it's for money, power, control. Control across the board for narcissistic abuse is normal. So it's important to understand that narcissism exists on a spectrum, and the types of narcissists that are discussed in this video represent various manifestations of something that's a very complex personality trait. Now, whether they're overt or covert or malignant or dark tetrad or communal narcissists, they all share a common need for admiration and for control, and they often do this at the expense of other people around them. So by understanding the distinctive characteristics of each type of narcissism, we can navigate this personality trait more effectively, ensuring our own emotional well-being is protected when we have to deal with people that are highly narcissistic. I know this has been a long video, and I really thank you so much for watching. If you have not already done so, please hit the like button if you like this information, just so it can get out to more people who really need the information. Also, subscribe to my channel if you're interested in holistic healing from narcissistic abuse and the various wounds that are created by it. And you can book a free call with me if you are interested in perhaps working with me on these holistic issues around being narcissistically abused by a parent, by a mate, by a friend, by a boss. Narcissists can show up at any point in your life in any way, shape, or form. And so the more you can work with yourself to heal those wounds and to understand strategies that you can use to get well from this, because narcissistic abuse is a holistic issue. It affects you mentally, emotionally, physically, and energetically, and spiritually. When you take care of the whole self, you have a greater chance for healing on all levels. I'm Dr. Meg Haworth, and I hope this information will help you get well now.